Well, let's call the Fitch-Rona EMS Commission meeting to order at 7 o'clock, June 18th, 2020. Do we need to do a roll call, or do you have it all from? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 people attending.
Yes, I have everybody but Greg, and it sounded like he showed up at the station. So, oh, and Mike. Wow, how does one forget Mike?
Yep.
Still, Mike, I just got a text from Mike saying, still trying to get on. I was on the wrong site. I think we're still trying, not having much luck. So we'll let him see if he can still work on it. But
Connected. Okay.
I think we'll proceed as is.
Were there any public comments?
I didn't receive any, no.
Okay. Then I guess we can go on to a review and approval of the meeting minutes from May 21st. Everybody
Make a-
to review them?
Yep, and I make a motion to approve the meetings from May 21st.
Is there a second?
I'll
All in
second.
favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed,
Aye.
so minutes are approved as written.
Perfect.
There was one little typo in there. There's a Chief Andrews. I think you meant Anderson.
I will check that. So, yeah,
Unless we have a new chief.
still here.
Yeah.
All right, I will make that correction and consider them approved as spell checked.
Then you want to go into the chief's report?
Sure. Nothing to see. I think can everybody see this screen?
Yep.
Probably, we're depending on whether it's tinier on your phone and Derek, and everybody should have got a printed copy of all of the stuff that I'm pulling up on the screen here.
Yep.
Yep, I'm reading the printed copy.
Perfect. So here's our chief's report as of June. So you can look, we were actually down a little bit with calls last month, but we're still actually up overall, still pretty good for the year. Things are starting to level out a little bit. I didn't check our numbers as of this morning. We're about halfway through the month, but what hearing from Dane County, the entire county is kind of getting back, sneaking back up a little bit. But that's where we're at for the year. If the trend continues, we're going to hit 3,700 calls, which is about 100 more than we planned for. But kind of the nature of our business, as I tell you every month. So that's where we're on for track for the year. You can see there's our Narcan reports. One less this year than we were at last year. This month has been a lot. And that's actually Dane County wide. Dane County Public Health and the 911 system actually work together to track some, I guess, syndromes is a good way to do this, some public health alerts. About the last 3 or 4 weeks or so ago, pretty significant increase in opioid overdoses in Dane County. So it's not just us seeing it here. As far as our municipalities go, pretty on par with where we normally are. Our fractal times are perfect, right where we want them to be. For training this month, it was actually this morning. It wasn't infectious diseases. They changed it up. It was pediatric asthma and anaphylaxis. That was yesterday. And we actually started meeting again. The world is kind of opening back up. The stuff is still broadcast out to the consortium as a group. But yesterday we met for the first time as a opened it up to essentially an in attendance training for us. We actually did host yesterday's down in Verona, but essentially because we got that large training space. So tables were 6 feet apart and closed everything down with the fogger before and after. So that was our training. Sun Prairie hosted this morning. Tuesday, we actually did we call it the base hospital exercise with a mass casualty. So Carrie Meyer from Dane County, Eric Anderson from Dane County actually came out and helped us we actually do real exercises with radios, put some big patients out where they actually have to pull out the kids off the ambulance, triage patients, actually call the hospital, activate kind of the mass casualty system in Dane County where they actually have to report in beds and do some good radio traffic. So that's actually scheduled with Dane County. I kind of have it standing schedule with Carrie every January and every June. We do that so that it forces our crew to dig into radios and find radio channels. That's it. I think it's a great exercise for us. And we talk through a lot of the challenge that we'll face. Still no events going on. And as of this morning, I think every single event through the end of the year in our district has been canceled. I don't know that it's, well, I don't, users group meeting, I'm still waiting for Epic. I'm still waiting to hear an official response from them, but I know they're talking about kind of
Thank you, boss.
getting rid of that or low keying that much more this year. All of the race day events have been canceled. So all of those, the bike races, the triathlons, everything's canceled. So we're sitting okay.
The festival is going to be in August though, right?
The hometown days.
Yeah, do you do anything with that?
So we usually put on a bike team for that.
Oh,
I have not heard, unless Kate has heard otherwise. I guess that is still on our schedule. Unless they've told.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's still a go for August.
Okay. Yep, we usually put out a team of bikes to go rove with the officers on, I think, Friday, Saturday nights. So it is in the schedule. I'm waiting for that to get canceled as well. The police canceled their national night out. I think they gave us the date on Monday and canceled it on Wednesday. And it looks like Mike is joining us.
It was a fight.
Glad to
Needless
see
to
you.
say, I am sick of these Zoom meetings and telephone ones. I should put a protest in right now. If you have another one of these, I won't come to it. I'll come in person.
We'll get you hooked up.
or you can come join me, Mike. You're 1 mile down the road.
There you go.
Two, actually, but
We'll get you set up at the station. You can still go to the station and somebody will moderate it for you. Hours of the day, days of the week. That's just good information for us to have. Like I said, municipalities hasn't changed a little bit. Fitchburg creeped up about a percentage, but overall it's not huge. You'll see there's our calls for service. Sick person. We're back to sick person being number one, whereas number two last month flip-flopped again. Another interesting thing is I kind of mentioned last month, you didn't see it here, but I only go out to 70%, but if I hit number 8 is actually back to cardiac arrests, where we saw it in our top 10 last month. Still trying to get that word out that though we don't want them going to the hospital, we need them going to the hospital for chest pains and stroke patients. So still actually seeing countywide a lot more cardiac arrests than we had been. Calls by station are usual. That station number 2 tends to be the busiest. As far as our financial report goes, things are right where they should be. I'll mention it a little bit when we get into the operating budget. Our run income was down pretty significantly in May. I actually did reach out to Brad out at our ambulance billing company, suspecting a lot of it has to do with, though most ambulance billing, I'm assuming, probably happens at home. I think just the nature of the world for March, April, and May, they just were caught up. We saw a pretty significant delay in our run income. The first 2 weeks of June have been pretty significant versus what we would normally see in June. So I'm hoping at the end of this month, we're going to kind of see that bump back up to normal. For what we have built out, things are right where they should. So the only little concern that popped up in my brain is you'll see our cash on hand there. That's what we got to get through the rest of the rest of our month here. So because of how the dates fall, that'll actually be 3 payrolls before we'll bill the municipalities for the second part of our years from municipal money. I'm hoping, from what I've been seeing now for run income coming in over the last 2 weeks, we should be okay. I may need to cash in one of those CDs to make payroll because that July 2nd is actually a payroll week. So I think we should be okay, but then we also got a couple pretty large bills that we have to pay for the second half of the year. I'll keep you informed of that. We're fine. We've got that reserve there to get us through, but our reserve money predominantly sits in those CDs now, not in that money market where it used to sit, so that we can get that insurance. But we're still doing okay, right where we should be. I guess in theory we should be out of money halfway through the year because that's how that works. So we'll keep an eye on it. I'll let you know how it goes. As far as our assigned funds, those have not changed. And then you'll see our WISC account there. That is our sick time balance that sits down at that investment company. Didn't get quite as great a return on it as we have previously gotten a few months, as nobody else did either in any investment. But it's still sitting there for us. So as far as our total funds sitting there, this is what we have as far as cash on hand. Compared to last year, it's a little bit lower, but I think we're still sitting okay. kind of as I started last month, wanted to bring up the donations account again, or the donations, what we've seen. So Lane's Bakery actually dropped off some donuts up at one of the Fitchburg stations. Willow Point stopped by with actually, there was some gardening gloves and some like sunshine cards in there about trying to bring sunshine to responders with some sunflower seeds. So it was actually nice of them to do that. Just for the crew members that were there. Festival Foods actually donated 20 cases of water. I'm going to share with you a trailer that we got from Dane County donated for just setting up for first responder rehab. We talked to them for some donations. They were able to give us some water. And then Nothing Bundt Cakes. If you haven't heard of it, over at Mineral Point, some phenomenal food as well.
We got those too at the hospital.
Yeah, very tasty. It just showed up in our entryway with a note of thanks on it. So I would like to give the shout outs to those people to let them know that we're very thankful. So my May milestones, Molly Jesperger is 18 years. That's a combination of LTE and full time. And then Tom Bates, who's been, as we talk about when we adapt all of our policies and kind of get rid of the volunteer language, Tom Bates is our still last remaining volunteer. Been with us actually 30 years this year. He used to ride every Sunday afternoon. So, are you able to mute him, Andrew?
Got him.
Perfect, thank you. And then those are just the comparables we saw last year. So that's my Chiefs report. For that, there's one I want to share. I gotta grab which screen it's on. As far as other donations, I wanted to go. I actually was going to share this with you last month and forgot. So Dane County is starting to essentially decommission a couple of the trailers they had. Used to have them for some hazmat trailers, and they have a couple of mass casualty trailers looking at operations countywide, starting to downsize some stuff and not have repetitive equipment and kind of just the realities of getting places. So I actually reached out and said, hey, can I have a free trailer? So Dane County actually donated a trailer to us. The only thing it cost us for this project so far has been the vinyl wrap that goes around it. So that was it. I took those funds out of our donation funds. The intent for this trailer, and we're almost up to operational. So when we do a lot of fire support or any sort of large event, Fitchburg has an entire utility rehab trailer. One of the challenges they run to, it's one of the last vehicles out the door, and then all of their firefighters are fighting fire. So that actually leaves us to try to utilize the stuff on their trailer. Verona kind of has pieces here and there again of stuff, which, and predominantly, right, the job of a rehab falls onto EMS anyways. So what we do is we have chairs, we have shelters, we have a Mr. Fan, we have a lot of stuff, but it all kind of sits in a room and can present a little bit of a challenge when we're trying to get it somewhere. So we got a free trailer, wrapped it. All of the stuff that we have inside of it then is stuff. We have 20 cases of water in there. The Fitch-Rona Fire Association, so that's the members, have actually purchased some cooling chairs. So they're like the camping chairs we have, only there's some actually pretty good research that the forearm cooling, so they put their forearms in cold water baths. Pretty good research. That's one of the more effective ways of body cooling. So they donated some new chairs, took out of our donation account. We bought a new shelter. Our old tent had a couple of, Brian knew how to fix them. Nobody else knows how to fix them. So we were holding it together with a paper clip for a couple of years. We got a new shelter with some weights. Dane County we were able to, I don't know if they donated it or we're just kind of permanently borrowing it. A couple of small oxygen tanks, another large oxygen tank with an oxygen manifold. So we'd actually be able to put 8 people on oxygen on a scene at any one time. So as a far like carbon monoxide overdose, we pull this trailer out here, we can get 8 people on high flow oxygen for an extended period of time. Small generator in there. So yeah, that's what it looks like. So I wanted to show that almost all of that has been donated between what we got from the counties and local donations and funds. So we have come up with an operational plan, kind of how to deploy it, and it's not sure how much it's going to get used, but I think it's the project we'll see, and you can see if it keeps growing, we can grow into something bigger.
Nice to have in case you need it.
Yeah. It's hopefully it gets used, or I shouldn't say hopefully it doesn't get used. That means people's homes aren't burning down and we don't have any issues. But should we need to use it, I think it's a pretty good asset to have. Right now we've been trying to keep it, I don't want to get the down low, but in Fitchburg and Verona, I said if somebody calls for it, we're more than willing to share it. we'll see how far it goes. Not sure that I want to start driving into other counties and taking a crew out of service for that, but that's a good thing.
Okay, let's move on. I assume there's no chair's report. I don't think either of the subcommittees met.
They didn't. They didn't. Normally or routinely, had we been meeting face to face, sorry, Mike, Finance Committee would have met before this meeting, so I could have introduced the budget to the Finance Committee, so they could have brought it forward here. I think just due to the nature of things, if the Finance Committee is okay with it, I'm just going to present it to everybody. Same thing. There's one of the policies here, the maternity leave normally would have gone in front of personnel. I think small enough group, if you're okay with it, we'll just talk about it here.
Yep. Okay.
This is Derek. This is Derek. I have a general question, like, for the chief's report. So what is, if you look back at this last month, like, what is the general impact of COVID-19 kind of like to your operations, and kind of how's morale of your staff?
Sure. So we're okay. I think it's a kind of good summary. We're going on, I think, kind of like the rest of the world. This has been, we tightened down on this in March, so we're going on 3.5, 4 months with this. We're really fortunate around here. I will submit at least speak to say what we saw, at least in Wisconsin or the Madison area. We were very lucky. And I think what the steps that were taken in Dane County and Madison area did what they were supposed to do. Whether one believes that or not, I think that it'll show that it did what it was supposed to do. But we didn't have that critical overflow in our hospitals. We didn't see that in our EMS systems either. We did see a pretty significant increase for a while, and then it was very, very cyclical of we didn't see anybody. We did our best to try to keep people out of emergency rooms that didn't want to be or shouldn't be in emergency rooms. Between donations and working in partnerships with the hospital and the county and the state, we are still sitting pretty good with our personal protective equipment. We've been able to partner with gowns, masks. We're really, my big project this week of all things has been gloves and alcohol preps, which seem really kind of ridiculous, but gloves and alcohol preps are kind of now on my radar of things that may become a challenge to get here in the fairly near future. So starting to reach out and find some other sources from that. Actually reached out to our distributor today, said, if I go online, I can see what you don't have. Can you tell me what you do have? So I think we'll be able to, essentially, we're going to have to switch brands of gloves for a while. The county was able to get me 4 boxes of alcohol preps. So supply-wise, we're doing okay. Morale-wise, I think everybody's, as much as we're ready for it to be over, I think this is just going to change the way we do business forever. I cannot see in a time, at least in the near future, where we will start going on calls without masks forever. At least until we know that there's, I don't even want to say a cure, but a vaccine, and we're not seeing that this exists anymore. My guess is we'll be going, masks. So it presents a little bit of a challenge. We also talk, though, we all learned that that's probably what we should have been wearing since we first learned to do this years and years ago, and we just never did. So I think overall we're good. We've had 3 people, I don't want to say COVID scares, but present with enough symptoms that they met the criteria for screening, and that emergency sick leave that we passed to as long as they were pursuing testing. At least 2 of the 3 came back negative. They were only out for a day. I think one was only out for about half a day before his results came back. I actually currently have one this week awaiting their results. So it's cost us 3 days, but I think it was a good benefit for them. It doesn't count against their bank and allows them to stay home and not potentially bring that in. If you haven't read any of the statistics coming out of Dane County, we just got that update from this morning from Public Health. There's still a 20 to 25% community spread, which means they cannot trace it back to where it came from. So it is still out there. And of all of those who are testing positive, it is still 25 to 25% of them who are presenting with no symptoms or at least not presenting with symptoms the days they get tested. So yeah, for us operationally wise, we're gonna be wearing masks and gloves and decontaminating that truck from bumper to bumper. Yet probably things we should have been doing for a while. We're gonna be doing it for the foreseeable future. Everybody's hanging in there and really, I think, adopting to this is the new. For now, this is our new norm. I know people hate that phrase, but this is our new norm for a while. That kind of help?
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions? If not, you want to get into your 2021 operating budget, the draft? No,
Sure.
is this for just preliminary review, right?
So this would be, I guess, this would be for the commission to approve for me to submit to the municipalities.
Ah, okay.
I guess if you have that, that's all right, because this is what I'm going to use anyway. Yeah, now if there's any changes or something you want brought back, it can wait. I think I still have a time frame to yet hit June before this is due for Fitchburg.
Okay, but hopefully we'll be able to approve it and you can forward it then.
Yeah.
It would be better to get it out to the municipalities so they know what kind of number is coming.
Yes. So give me a second to figure out why things are so slow and not popping up for me.
What
Where is
picture?
this, Wisconsin?
Yeah, nice scenery.
Yeah, Yosemite, back when people were in it.
Some of the parks are open. Montana.
I think this one is opening, I thought it was fairly soon, but I don't know if anybody had seen the Bears are back now.
Is that the rock they jump off of?
Yep. All right, so you can see my screen?
Yes.
I'll apologize for any errors. I checked it 2 or 3 times and actually as it's popping into my head, there's still one error on my piece of paper here. I know I didn't go back and fix. I'll point it out, but what you'll see in front of you here should, with the one exception I'll show you, match up with the spreadsheet that is in front of you, or that you have, the Excel spreadsheet. So there's actually 2 different things here. So the first one is the capital improvement process, which we actually talked about this. Well, actually, we haven't talked about this. So 2 things. This window has already been submitted, so hopefully you're okay with it. This next year's budget, I'll kind of show you what the best I did. There's nothing too crazy in it. So 2 things for the 2021 capital improvement budget. Nothing out of the ordinary. So next year, 2021 will be our every other year ambulance replacement. Just that quick down and dirty, right? We have 5 ambulances, 3 of them are frontline, 2 of them are reserves. We buy one every 2 years. With 5 ambulances, we keep it for 10 years. We sell it after 10 years. So our current one is a 2011, right? This is every 2 years. Addressing it at some point, Chief Merlin had talked about doing remounts. That's actually taking the back of the box and just essentially putting it on a new truck chassis. It's in the big picture, I guess in the little picture, whatever picture it is cheaper to do that. But once to me, and I guess talking with people and seeing it, when you do that, it's like if you took the cab of your own vehicle and put it on a different chassis. It looks great, but it never quite fits. Our boxes get, as much as I'd like to, they drive with due regard and caution. Our boxes get beat up. Just merely the fact of construction. There's a pole at UW that has, I think, every single ambulance that we own has our paint on it. So I decided I don't like the remount option. So this is actually a brand new ambulance every 2 years for a 10-year life. With our last purchase and the last selling of that ambulance, now everything, Braun is the ambulance service that they've just been phenomenal to work with. They're out of Minnesota. Drop of a hat, they will come help us and fix everything. So Braun is who we continue to go with, which means all of our ambulances are now the same. So I buy a door lock and it actually fits in theory on every single ambulance we have. So they're all F450 4x4s. what I did, you'll see the number, I did increase the price by $20,000 from what we have previously had in our fleet management, in our fleet replacement system. Reason I did that was that I brought up to this group in the past is this will actually add anti-idle technology, which down and dirty is this. I can send you the link if what you want is. So Braun, there's a couple different companies out there that do anti-idle technology. Braun specifically partners with this one. A couple of the other ones are actually also proprietary to different ambulance manufacturers. So searching around, this one to me is one of the one I liked and I think will work the best we can work with. What it does is it actually puts a small bank of batteries that's in the bottom right-hand corner there. I think he said it's about 3 batteries. They actually do they put essentially like a mobile air conditioner, mobile heating unit on there. So it's not like a current, if you bought a 2019 vehicle, I think it is, or later when you come up to a stop sign, you step in the brakes or stoplight, you're shut off. As you take your foot off the brake, it starts driving again. It's actually not that. What this does is allows the back of the ambulance, so the patient care compartment, which has always been the challenge. Say I'm on an emergency scene, I'm at a training, I'm at a standby, I can put my vehicle in park, I can actually turn this on, and the patient care compartment actually will run off these batteries from anywhere to 3 to 5 hours without the vehicle actually now idling. It actually will run the emergency lights, heating, air conditioning, which in Wisconsin, right, pretty significant. When they get to the hospital and drop a patient off, they can close the cab doors and it'll actually heat it and cool it again. So it's the quote I got for an install is about $20,000. I'd say about $20,000 for the purchase of the unit, about $10,000 for the install. It's a little bit cheaper to do it on a brand new truck. One, I actually put this in for our EPIC grant through the city of Verona. So hoping that EPIC will actually help foot the bill for this, which would bring the cost of the capital improvement project down. But I wanted to make you aware that I increased the price of the ambulance by $20,000. The price of the ambulance itself is about $250,000. There's about $100,000 worth of stuff in it. It's kind of astronomical, right? The price increase of the cot, an auto loader, the cardiac monitor that's in there, all that stuff is tens of thousands of dollars. But we keep it for 10 years. The other option would be then, right, we would be replacing every single cot. It would make, to me, it makes CIP planning even more challenging, a little bit more difficult, because now I have to anticipate what 5 new cots are going to cost and how long I can keep them, and what 5 new cardiac monitors are going to cost and how long I can keep them. So I wanted to make you aware that this number went up about $20,000, and that's what I submitted to the municipalities. Any questions on that?
Patrick, so what you're saying is with this battery setup you're getting in there, the ambulances won't have to run all the time when they're not plugged in at the station?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is Stealth Power. They do, it's not on the list here. So they work with New York City and New Orleans and Austin, Travis County. So they actually have some pretty big customers out there. We, as a system, Fitch-Rona, I mean, we don't stage. We don't do systems management, right? My crews don't come in the morning, check out an ambulance and go sit at the corner. There's days I want to make them do that, but they don't. That is where you see the true savings come in from a system like this. This truly, I mean, is what it is. This is truly warm fuzzies for Fitch-Rona. I don't know that for a 10-year life of an ambulance, I don't know that we would ever see a fuel and maintenance savings that would pay for the cost of this system in our truck. But if you look at the whole reason for going green, this will make a difference.
Maybe.
It will. They don't sit there when you think when we go and sit at an average, a truly a working structure fire, that is, we will sit there for 3 to 4 hours. We would sit there for 3 to 4 hours with that truck running. Now we don't have to. We go sit at an ambulance when we go sit out at Epic for a 12-hour day, and the system it runs off the batteries. When it senses that the batteries are too low, it'll turn the truck back on, charge the batteries back up, and then shut it back off. We'll see some fuel savings from it, but again, probably not the cost that it would take. by putting it in we'll obviously see how this works, but by increasing the overall fleet management or the fleet cost like this and projecting that out, this will now be included on every ambulance that we purchase in the future. So eventually, I did look at retrofitting a couple of our ambulances, so our three frontline ambulances would actually have this on. It came to just about $70,000. When I submitted that to the city of Verona, kind of said, hey, this is what I want from Epic. They kind of countered and said, how about you pare that down just a little bit so other people can have stuff too? Okay. So we'll put it in for the future, for this ambulance and all future ambulances. And that way we got one truck, and we'll see what kind of savings we get from it and whether it's a good investment or not. It's built into the cost of the truck, whether we get the Epic grant or not. We don't have any other questions. So the only other thing we have in the CIP for next year, and this is in the plus side of replacing an entire ambulance and its contents, we don't have huge other CIP projects because we're able to kind of just replace things as they lifespan out. The second thing then is our response vehicle. This year is the year we will see our Car 17, our second response vehicle. Since Ford shut everything down to go make ventilators and stuff, we're looking probably now September or August or September to see that. It should have been here last month. It's fine. We have a car, but that was ordered. It was approved for this year's CIP project. So the next fleet part, and it's part of the fleet replacement policy or the fleet replacement CIP that we put in. Our current vehicle is a 2010, so we should be able to get, by best estimates, 25 years out of them. We're only putting about 5,000 miles a year on them between myself and Jeff. We're hitting a solid 5,000, but only 5,000 a year, which to me, we don't do a huge amount of wear and tear on them. We should be able to get 15 years out of them. But because there's never been a replacement project before, this one that was bought in 2010 will need to be replaced in 2025. And then after that, it'll be every 15 years after that. It should fall in the years we don't buy a new ambulance. The only thing that gets replaced in the back of, and the only thing that is included in the replacement cost here is the technology. So it's the computer that sits in the front and the cradle point that provides us with our connection to the 911 center. There's no equipment that's replaced in here. So those are the two CIP things, if anybody's got any questions. Those aren't a surprise. All right, operational budget. So here's the meat and the potatoes of everything. So here's our 2021 operational budget. Starting with our fee schedule, to remind you what we charge. So we charge $1,100. This is our base rate. So just to put a resident in the back of the truck is $1,100. For a non-resident, it's $1,200. Price difference is because residents help pay taxes that help lower the cost of operating. On no transport fee, we actually have a tiered system for most patients. If we go there, we do an assessment. We take a set of vital signs, whether they should go or shouldn't. Patients have the right to refuse. But we did an assessment. We provided a service. It's $150. If it was, I didn't call you, somebody overreacted, don't touch me, we don't charge for those. Supplies are in there. They vary. There's a number formula later that kind of figures that out, and we're up to $22 for a loaded mile. So how I figured out what to figure out for run income. So in 2021, for next year, I am anticipating 3,700 calls. So it's 100 more calls than this year. That's a raise of about 3%, which is what we usually use to figure out our run volume on. Currently, we're down to about 47.1%. It just kind of has to deal with, we were up above 50% for a while, but that was a lot of calls with 2 rigs. We're kind of back down at the bottom of that phase with a lot of calls and 3 rigs, which means it's starting to cost us a little bit more until we start getting more calls to keep those rigs busier. That kind of waiver of what it costs per truck is a little bit lower. And 47% is what we're actually able to collect in those. Now that does include for newer people, that does include things that we are never going to collect, like Medicare and medical assistance, TRICARE, the government programs that we have to take write-offs on, that is included in here. So we're never going to collect 100%. We collect 47. Discussion for you. Now it's not on this agenda, but you can consider it and we can talk about it next month. We last raised our rates in 2019. So that would be 2 years at these current rates. Discussion, I guess probably a recommendation is that we raise our rates for 2021. So that would be a 2-year review. I went back to go try to find what other municipalities are charging, and I can't find any current rates. I'm working on getting that data. I actually reached out to Byng County. Normally that's shared earlier in the year, and Carrie, I don't know what she's doing right at emergency management for the last 3 months, but hasn't forgot to get that data for us for this year. So I should actually have those numbers for you next month for us to take a look at. But my suggestion would be at least probably a minimum of $50 to $100. We raise those base rates. So that's how we determine what we're gonna using that data. 3,700 calls. There's a beautiful formula that Lon put together that determines what our estimated run income is going to be. Now, 3 years ago, we were spot on with that. I think within about $3,000. The last 2 years, our run income, well, actually the last half of last year and then this year to date, our run income is actually fallen pretty far below what the anticipated run volume income is going to be. So I went back and pulled some of those numbers again with our billing company and what we're billing and what we're seeing. We are seeing, and I think it really has to do with this third ambulance, we are seeing more no transports than we used to see, which is throwing the formula off. Normally I used to just be able to say 3,700 calls. This is what I can expect. But that was really based on that we transport this number of patients, we bill this number of calls. So our no transport rate has actually gone up probably, I think it was about 6% is what I looked at. If we get canceled en route, we never make it to a scene. So that still counts as a call, but it's a not billable call. So roughly 25 to 30% of our calls, we get canceled and we don't ever bill for. So I adjusted those rates a little bit, and I think they still need to be tweaked even more for next year, but I didn't, as we're gonna kind of hit the end of as we get to the end of the budget here. To keep this as status quo would have been a gigantic budget impact. Operational budget impact for our municipalities. So I tweaked it a little bit. So that's why you'll only see a 2.3% change in run income to the greater versus normally we've been seeing about a 3 to 5% over the last couple of years. So I kept it low based on what we are currently seeing. The town of Madison could completely throw a whole monkey wrench into all of this stuff. So this is planned very much on the conservative side. That this is what I'm anticipating, and the goal would be obviously to get more run income than what we budget. But this to me is a very cautious, or I would say, yeah, a very cautious approach that I don't think we're going to get a ton more than this right here. A couple other revenue incomes that we have, or revenue is the public education courses. So those are the CPR courses. That is really a pass through. We charge for those courses, and what we charge for those courses covers the cost of personnel. And those are all usually done at overtime. So though you'll see the overtime creep up to maybe, overtime being like 105%, that 5% is actually coming out of the public education courses. So it's covered. Interest income, that's actually pretty spot on for what we're probably going to see this year. And then contracted events. Now I raised that a little bit based on the discussion we had last month, and what we'll talk about this month is the Alliance Energy Center. So providing you agree with it and we signed that intergovernmental agreement, and went through and did some data about what we could see from providing an ambulance to the Alliance Energy Center is roughly about $5,000 beyond what it would take for personnel costs. Now that's going to end up covering things like uniforms and equipment and radios and supplies and kind of the miscellaneous thing, at least for this first year till we get kind of up and running. So I raised the contracted events number up just a little bit, $950. I don't like to count on contracted events. Again, it's a pass-through. All the things that got canceled this year, race day events, probably the Epic Users Group that we put in contracted events. If those are canceled and we don't get that money in, it's actually fine because I didn't send anybody to staff it. So it truly is just a pass. But I wanted to raise it here a little bit just because I know pretty sure the Alliant Energy Center is a done deal. Now, if this continues on, it's entirely possible that it will never happen, but we won't see those costs. But there's a known cost like uniforms, as we talked about, getting probably some different uniforms to identify us a little bit differently. So I did want to put some funds in there to help offset what the municipalities will see. This is the only source of income that we have outside of what we charge to the municipalities based on taxes, but we are fortunate enough we do have a source of income. So this is all of the, essentially what we call the personnel costs. I don't have a ton of control over this. This is almost all contractual. You'll see a gigantic change in there for unscheduled overtime. So Jeff and I went back and looked, and again, this is based on a beautiful spreadsheet that Lon did. And it spit out this unscheduled overtime. The more, it's based on vacation hours, sick time, historical looks at sick time. That determines what this unscheduled overtime is going to be. So it actually kind of kept growing as much as wages kept growing. When we actually looked and saw what we spent over the last 2 years on unscheduled overtime, it was a lot less than what we actually had budgeted for the last 2 years in scheduled overtime. Now, 3 years ago, that number was about 240%. But that was also a year we had 3 people out on medical leave. Not that I can anticipate that, but looking at trying to keep this a fairly tight budget year, I took it down to something that's fairly reasonable that we looked at least the last 2 years. That number does not need to be nearly as high as what we have it budgeted for. So I kept it there still to provide a cushion should I get somebody who's going to be gone for 6 months on a medical leave, but at the same time brought it down to something that I think is fairly realistic and is actually going to help keep the overall cost down. Beyond that, the wages and salaries are contractual. I can't fuck that, based on a 40-hour work week plus 8 hours of overtime every week, plus what everybody has vacation coming. This year, we see a little bit of bump there because all those people who we hired on July 21st of last year, on July 21st of this year, will all get their vacation bank that they, yay, right? I've done my first year, now I get to go on vacation. So I have 7 people who will all get 6 days of vacation. So next year, I've got all of those days, whatever that math turns out to be. All those days I know I'm going to have to fill with an LTE. We actually have a pretty good LTE pool as well. That's another reason I think that I'm feeling fairly comfortable bringing that unscheduled overtime down. As of this morning, I think we're up to 20 LTEs who've all actually been phenomenal about covering those overtime costs for us. Can't do anything about retirement, Social Security, miscellaneous benefits, health insurance, and dental insurance. Now that is actually based on an assumption of an 8% increase in health and a 4% increase in dental, which is what we've used every other year. Knock on wood, we haven't ever seen an 8% increase in dental, but it's been upwards of 6 and 7, and we've been usually spot on around that 4 to 5% for dental. And this is anticipating that all of our employees stay in the same programs that they currently are at. I did reach out to them. And said, anybody going to change? I got one person who's probably going to pick up our dental, and my recently married medic said they're going to keep their own for a while till they figure out whether they're going to be happy in life. They'll be fine. But that's what the health insurance was based on. Did increase workers' comp. That's really based on an assumption. We did have a work-related injury last year that kept an employee out for 4 months. So I'm kind of anticipating that's going to creep up. It also creeps up merely for the fact we now have 21 employees and not 14. Sick time over cap, if you remember, so 20, this is part of the last contract negotiation. What to deal with when people hit their sick time cap, we pay out 50% of their overtime into an HRA for them. I will have one more person hit that cap for that overtime this year that we'll have to start paying out at the end of the year. The other 2 things is we had 3 people who were significantly over that cap. Part of the contractual agreement was to pay them out over that cap to bring them down to what the current cap was in 2 lump sums, one of them being in 2020, the other one being in 2021. So that's why that number is significantly over that. We can have the discussion next year whether we'll bring it down. It's somewhere around 13 to 15,000 usually, just in covering over cap with not those payouts. My suggestion, just planting the seed for next year, is we probably keep it similar to what this number is. We actually take and designate some sort of fund such as $10,000 or so and start feeding that back into the retirement fund so that we can continue to keep that funded It's really good. That's that whisk balance that we saw at the beginning here, that 218,000, I think what it is, which is really great until I project out about 5 years from now. The number of employees that could walk away and retire that we would have to pay out essentially our liability starts encroaching on about 300,000 in about 5 years from now. That's providing every single employee left at the same time. Probably not going to happen, but something to think about for next year. We may want to start actually filling that back up as we're going to start to see within the next 2 years. We're going to start to pull some big lump sums out of there. Medical director annual fee, I reached out to that. That's not going to change. So you look at all of that from bringing the unscheduled overtime, it's about 3.2% in personnel costs. And most of that, it's all contractual. I can't kind of shared with you the assumptions, what it's based on. So that's personnel costs. The largest sum there. So it changes it from 2.7 million to 2.8. The regular operational stuff, again, this is probably what I have the greatest amount of control over, but you're going to see is in the big picture of things is a pretty low number.
Pat,
Uh-huh.
can you go back to that personnel thing for a moment? The unscheduled overtime, Social Security, Medicare taxes, the far right, you've got percentage change.
Yep.
I think those percentages are off.
Yes, this is where I had said when I started off saying, remember, I forgot to go back and fix this. And this is the line I forgot to go back and fix.
Okay.
You're correct. The unscheduled overtime is actually 22.5% less. The sheet you have in front of you is correct. This one is wrong.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for noticing. But yes, there's a squiggle on my notes here. Correct this before the meeting. And my cat, dog, right? I'm gonna blame them.
Okay.
So the few things that I can control, that I really can control, more miles, more calls means more oil changes and more fuel. So this is updated with the cost of what an oil change costs us. I didn't include any more of them. It just increased the cost of the oil change. So that's why you'll see oil, fuel, and lube go up. The only other line that I increased is medical supplies. I'm comfortable with that increase right there. We spent a little bit more. We spent significantly more over last year, but as I shared with you, we also did the upgrade to our supply system last year with our RFID tags that all came out of here. Yes, that one right there. So we're going to up that by 2.5%. It's just the cost of medications and everything going up. A hope is we are working on signing an agreement with Dane County, and as part of our consortium is actually, if you've ever been to the emergency room, there's a big blue vending machine that vends drugs. Those actually all belong to the city of Madison. It's been a Carrie Meyer from Dane County, who has been phenomenal, has actually helped facilitate the county actually purchasing those from the city and stocking those from the city. So we'll actually be able to go and fill our trucks from those vending machines. So if we use a couple of one things and a couple of another things, normally we would have to come back to our station and restock from our supplies. This system will allow us to go to the vending machines and actually restock the truck straight from those vending machines, which means I don't have to keep $30,000 worth of drugs in my station. So the goal, I think, over the long term, I've done the math. What I throw away from expired medications and what we have in excess will more than pay for what it will cost us for the county to actually manage these machines. So hopefully that number will go down next year. I don't know that it'll go down, but we'll start seeing a savings as we have more supplies. Everything else I kept the same, down to personnel recruitment. So if you remember 2 years ago, when we did our large hiring for our 7 new people, we purchased NeoGov, which is an HR platform. We just bought the module for hiring recruitment. Phenomenal program. It's great. It works good for trying to hire and manage 55 applications for 7 spots. We kept on to it because there's the ongoing cost. It was about $5,000 to $7,000. It was to purchase it, but 2,500 of that was set up alone. When you shut your account off, they shut your account off. And if we ever wanted to turn it back on again, so say in 3 years from now, you actually have to pay that setup cost. So what we were seeing was just maintaining it. We actually recruited our last group of LTEs from it. We managed it from them. When we got our bill for this coming year, or this year, the cost of it went up almost $1,000. So for what minimally we use it for, we don't do big hirings like what we did last year. So what I did was take the cost of that out of there. We're not going to renew NeoGov for next year. It's going to save us about $1,800. So I think that was a good investment to just, it's great if we need it over the course of 2 to 3 years. It actually, we would save enough money if we wanted to use it again to rebuild the entire platform versus what we'll save over 2 years. I did keep the money in there. I did keep $1,000 in there because when we do recruit new LTEs for us, we need to send them through drug screening and a physical exam. Each one of those is about $250, $300. So when we actually just hired 5 or 6 new people here, each one of those costs money to get onboarded. So I did keep that money in there for personnel, but dropped it pretty significantly. Only other thing I raised on there then would be the subscriptions and dues. The Wisconsin EMS Association, which is kind of serves to, well, it primarily sells itself as a lobbying agency for EMS in Wisconsin, which it does, which I think is important for them to do. The other part of it, we belong to a buying group because of them. So we actually get some pretty significant discounts on our medical supplies and some of our equipment. They started providing death and disability insurance to all of its members. We were at a corporate member, which allowed us to put 10 people in there. Said, unfortunately, and which 10 am I supposed to pick to get free death and disability membership? So we actually had to up our membership to allow all 21 people to get that free benefit. Just got something about a month ago that cost has become astronomical. And WMSA, the EMS Association, has decided to discontinue that, which means we will discontinue our big membership and go back down to our little membership. But I don't know what that cost is yet. So that I just kept it at the high cost. What you'll see on here, some of those things like facility furnishings, that's the rent we pay to the city of Verona. The utilities line was one I thought and I found and had a little quirk on my face, as you'll see here. We actually haven't paid anything out of that utilities line in 3 years. So I don't know where it came from. My assumption is it's probably a remnant left over from when we were up in Fitchburg and probably paid utilities to Fitchburg for their fire station. So I zeroed out that line.
You're in your other building over there in Verona before you got the fire.
Yeah, that could have been it as well from Venture Court. So I said I only went back 3 years. I didn't go any farther back than that. The line it ended up staying. So I zeroed it out. We do pay utilities for the administrative space that we use in the Verona fire station, but those fall under facility furnishings. There's something else in there. There's 3 line items that we do pay for that space at the city. So it's not like we don't pay it. It's built into a different line item. So that one is zeroed out. Just trying to find some other spaces to try to cut a little bit of money here and there to keep this as low as I possibly could. Our medical equipment, I brought that down $1,000. I've shared with this. There's no plan. We do have a maintenance program every 2 years. I do buy new batteries for our cardiac monitors. I buy usually 2 new batteries for our cots, just because those things don't have a 10-year lifespan. They're lucky if I get 5. We actually just got rid of one the other day that was 11 years old. I can't believe it lasted that long, but it finally died. So that is one of the things that we pull out of medical equipment. The other thing is I've shared, we have monitors, RAD57s, they're carbon monoxide monitors, pulse oximeters. One of those breaks, those are $4,000 to $5,000 purchases. I don't think we own anything. So that's why I've kept that line item up. But I think, just trying to cut some money here and there, I lowered it down a little bit. The last one was that office equipment. Originally, I raised it $500 last year because we needed to replace the printer at the Verona fire station, which we did. So we can bring it back down to $500. The other 2 stations, both 2 Fitchburg fire stations, got new printers when we moved into them. So we took that. The last one, this is the bottom of the contract there, or the bottom of the operational budget. You'll see there, the billing service, they take 6% of what they collect for us, which is actually still, when you do look at other billing services out there, we still actually are getting a pretty good deal. It is their incentive to collect for us because they only get paid on what they collect for us. So more calls means they get more money. One topic I will bring up, and I guess you can give me your feedback if you want, or for your feedback. I've talked this over with Jeff, and you maybe want to wait to see what the final numbers are before you want to discuss it. Another big chunk of money that we could save, as I'm hearing from all the municipalities about not getting a lot of the funding that, basically the COVID expenses, the paramedic internship. So we have the last year, and then again this year, we actually have not sent anybody. I don't want to say qualified candidates, but we haven't had any good candidates from our fire programs, and we haven't sent any to the colleges. We can take $7,600 out of our budget by skipping the internship program for another year. I don't think this is something that should permanently come out of our budget. I think it is good in the long run. As I presented to you in January, I really think we should have a great externship program that can be funded, and we can subsidize tuition for people interested in EMS careers. I think one, we can save money by cutting it. And two, we still really don't know what the future looks like for our programs. Now, I know MATC is going to put a paramedic program again in the spring, but really until we know what's going on, I don't know that I want to start bringing people in from the outside and putting them on a truck until we're really sure this second wave isn't going to come, et cetera, kind of with that. If you want to have a discussion on it or kind of tell me what you think, I mean, it's $7,000 in a $3.1 million budget, right? It's a little piece, but my understanding is what 2021 is going to look like. It's a lot of little pieces. To forego it for a year, I don't think it won't have a huge operational impact on us. Right? We have staff. This is really a benefit that I think helps EMS in the long run. I think we're a phenomenal training facility, and I think we can help continue that. We'll still sponsor students from the college. We just won't have our own people. I'd like to see it come back eventually. What are your thoughts?
I think everything you've said makes sense. I think, well, again, it doesn't make a whole lot out of our budget, but knowing what we have coming next year, it would be nice to have that money to pad some of the other areas that we know that we'll need it. But again, I'd like to see it come back if we find the right candidate, or some of this crap that's going on right now goes away.
Sure. Guess if Kate or Shannon or Mike who have to sit up there and defend my budget, do you have any thoughts?
I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that any small cuts that you can make are going to be greatly appreciated, but I agree. I don't want to see it come out of as a line item out of the budget permanently, but for this year, it would be helpful. I agree.
I can follow suit with those guys. It's such a small amount that's really gonna amount, that'd be a nothing burger when you really look at it. Divide that up 3 ways.
Sure.
It won't be much money.
Right. Yeah. In the big picture, it's not. But this is one of the very few. The bottom half, the truly operational side of things, are one of the very few things I can control. So as of this point, I will present it with it left out, kind of hearing support from the group. What that did is, you'll see then the bottom line is from the 2020 budget to the 2021 budget, an $85,000 increase, which is an increase of about 0.7% in the bottom half. So this is what you're probably most interested in, is this is how it works out for your municipalities. These are based on 2019 equalized valuation. It all depends on timing. I usually get the equalized evaluations in August, which means before they finally get it approved, they'll get the true equalized evaluation. It doesn't ever really change. So at least that 49, 44, and 5 usually don't change. The percentages usually. So what it means for the city of Fitchburg, it will be across the board, all municipalities, it's still a 4.45% increase. And really the combination comes from wages and salaries, which I can't really do anything about. And then because of that run income that we're just not seeing it catch up to what it's costing us, that run income is is budgeted to be lower this year than it has in previous years. So it's a 4.45% increase, which dollar amounts means City of Fitchburg will pay $30,000 more this year. City of Verona will pay $27,000, and the town will pay. Again, those will change once equalized value comes in, but it doesn't change that much.
Question. The Verona or town of Verona municipal cost, is that an accurate number for 2021 compared
No.
to 20?
We like it.
I bet.
Yeah, you're quite okay with that.
Yeah, I think you're missing the number in there.
Missing a number there. It should be 74,607. The one in the number on the bottom is right. So it's a $3,179 difference, but it should be 74,607. I'm missing a 4.
Okay.
It should be 7,428.
70.
Not 74,000.
It should be $74,607.
Blame it on the dog again.
It's cutting and pasting the original presentation 2 weeks ago and then changing the numbers about 3 times since then, and then it changes the whole spreadsheet but doesn't cross over. It's a $56,000 difference between year one and between last year and this year. Unless you can see anywhere else, as kind of as I brought up last year, really the only other places we could truly cut would be in unscheduled overtime, and that is where we do the community service stuff. It really remains to be seen what we're going to see for 2021 in athletic events, CPR classes, all of the outreach, the things that we do for free, the national night out with the police departments, the open houses. That is the only thing that I plan in overtime that we could cut, but it still ends up being fairly not impactful, and I think in the big picture affects outreach. Any other questions regarding this?
The one that was scheduled for this year, for those events like the night out and whatever, it's obviously not being spent. Is that being rolled over for maybe next year if it's back?
So I'm actually. Glad you brought that up, because I continually forget it, at least here, to. So this is our actually relating this to where we're sitting at this year. You have this document as well. So this is our current operating budget for 2021. This is where I showed you our run income. So we're 41% through the year, based on what we usually see for what I'm expecting, what we budgeted for run income. We're only at about 35%. Really, we're 41% of the year. So we're actually down about $243,000 anticipated by the end of the year if this trend continues, which we can tell you already is not. We're already getting back to normal. Down here, so on the plus side of, or I don't want to say plus, but though our run income is down, our wages and salaries are actually also down as well. Now, not nearly as much. This is a mirror of what we saw last year. Our run income was down, but our overtime was down as well. It didn't equal out. So that money, what it does is it essentially sits in the reserve. It doesn't go earmarked towards any of these things. It just goes back into the reserve, which this year we were spot on 20%. Next year, I know we'll be, or for at least the end of this year, I know we'll be under that 20%. I kind of danced around your question. It sits in the reserve. How is that?
Sounds good.
Yeah, it doesn't get subtracted because it's
that's
really,
fine. I mean,
it's really an unknown. I mean, I don't know what it's gonna be.
yeah.
So it doesn't stay earmarked in any one of those line items to reduce it. Yeah, I don't reduce salaries by next year by 20% because I have a 20% excess. I haven't anticipated 20% excess this year. I just don't know what that number is going to be at the end of the year. Can't count on it.
I just anticipate things are pretty much shot for this year for special events that you might attend. I assume that we'll see them come back in some form next year.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
But yeah, but I don't want to adjust the budget on it based on an unknown. I'd rather do this year. Again, we've had a really good LTE pool this year who's been able to pick up a lot of that unscheduled overtime, and that's why you'll see that number is fairly low because they're not paying overtime to LTEs. The rest of the stuff you'll see that we're pretty spot on with spending. We're either at or below where we should be, with the exception of health insurance. And I kind of shared that. It just kind of where it falls at the end of the year and how that's got to get paid. The only other line that's way over is you'll see the personnel recruitment there, because we did pick up 5 new LTEs and the cost of NeoGov went up. So we're actually over in personnel recruitment. Medical equipment maintenance is up as well. We did purchase a new stair chair. That was a budgeted item. So though it's at 116%, the anticipated cost of that, there should be no more cost for that for the year. Same with, I think when we get down to the bottom with the accounting fees, where it says we're at 72%, that gets paid out at the beginning of the year for the Johnson Block audit. But the only reoccurring accounting fees we're going to see towards the end of the year are our payroll fees that we see remaining. So that's right where it should be. But this is where we're at. So we're at 37% of our expenditures for the year, and we're at 41% through the year. So we're doing okay. You have this document in front of you if you got any other questions. This is part of the chief's report that I forgot.
Patrick, I have a question for you. You said Alliant Energy Center is a done deal, but you raised the price up a little bit on it, correct? So you say we're going to be servicing the Alliant Energy Center for the things they aren't going to have right now. Like they're all getting canceled. But did you say we're going to make some money, or it's just going to be a pass-through deal?
So what we'll do, and then we'll have to approve this as well when we get towards later in the year. My suggestion is we currently charge $50 an hour for a standby per person. So most of the time when we send out an ambulance, it's $100 an hour. If we send out a bike team, it's $100 an hour. My suggestion to keep life fair with everybody, our personnel costs are starting to rise. That truly that $50 an hour is a pass through, right? We don't make any money. And the purpose is not to make a ton of money off of a standby, right? It's providing the service that we have. When I figured out the cost there was a couple different pathways we were going to proceed down through the Alliant Energy Center, and I know it's on the agenda for a little bit later from now. So I actually raised it from $50 an hour to $65 an hour. With that actually covers a little bit more of the personnel costs. It also covers a little bit more of the administrative cost of myself and Jeff actually kind of managing this. You want to chat about it now? So if we did for $65 for essentially $130 an hour for an ambulance, and if we did all the events that they did in 2019, I think Fitch-Rona makes all of about $5,000 in profit off of it. It's minimal, and it's essentially designed to cover the time that Jeff and I have to do for hiring people and recruiting them and buying them uniforms.
Is it worth it?
I think so. It's an opportunity for our crews and our LTEs to get some more hours, to get some more experience, to put a Fitch-Rona out there for tens of thousands of people to see as they walk by our ambulance. We'll see in 1 year. Maybe not.
Okay. Where do they have
Question.
Mm-hmm.
With, I understand Chief Davis basically expressed he's not interested. What would happen if the mayor finds out that we're doing it versus Madison, and she wants Madison to do it. Or some other political thing that comes along and Madison wants to take it over.
So it's not a contract, it's an intergovernmental agreement between us and Dane County. I mean, I'd let them take it. It's not worth a fight to take it. I have the process in place already and I know this is a different agenda item, so I don't know how much we can skew from the agenda. Do you want to talk about it?
Well, should we move on from the operating budget? If there's any more questions, otherwise you'd like a motion to get approval?
And I guess unfortunately, I only put it on here as presentation. I didn't put it on here as review and action. So I don't know that you can vote on it.
So we'll have to do it next month.
I think we should still send this, Patrick, you should still send this as a tentative budget to all the municipalities so they can see what's coming.
Okay.
And just say this has not been approved by the EMS commission yet.
Okay. I think that's perfect.
I think, Patrick, you still wanted to do a little review of it too as well. Then we talk about maybe just kind of fine tuning stuff. So it could change.
Yeah, this is truly a presentation to you. There's a couple, we looked at some uniforms as well. I think I missed that in there. We upped the uniform cost. There's a couple people who need turnout gear next year. So this, we'll get one more. I will present what you saw here to our municipalities, with the understanding you're still going to get another kick at this next month.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Okay, should we move on to the next agenda item then, Patrick?
Yep.
The information request.
So this is one of the policies we updated. It hadn't been updated since 2010. This was actually, Jeff took a pretty good, again, using the same term, took a pretty good kick at this, going through public information. So we've both been through the NIMS, the Fire Academy, the State Emergency Management Public Information Officers course. And so still made some changes to what we had for our original policy here. In what you see in red, it doesn't really affect our crews at all. It just gives us some little bit better guidelines about how we release information. Did everybody get a chance to read it? It's not hugely controversial.
No, I have one question. OIC, an officer in charge?
Yes. Yeah, is that, we probably should spell that out.
Any discussion?
Great.
I guess we're comfortable with it. Your motion to approve is modified or updated?
Mike so moves.
Second?
Derek seconds. Derek seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
And
I
anybody
just
opposed?
have minor thing on that last one. A little spelling error at the very bottom, the last paragraph.
Which paragraph?
The very last paragraph of the document. B, third line down, I think you want an S in front of all for shall.
Got it.
Oh, yeah. Good catch.
Spell check doesn't fix words that aren't spelled wrong, right? Thank you.
So,
You're welcome.
I guess it's approved with the one change.
So yeah, so like usual things, that'll go, I did send it out to our crews on Monday. So after tonight, they have a 21-day input period. If there's any feedback that is considered significant, it'll come back to this group next month for you to consider and change or let stand. So the second policy that you'll see here, and I actually changed it already with one input from the crew from what I had originally sent you. We didn't have a maternity leave policy. What we had essentially was just adapted FMLA. This doesn't really change anything. Well, obviously FMLA is a state and federal law. We can't change anything with FMLA, but this provides a little bit more guidance for any of our staff who is considering going on maternity leave. This was copied from Fitchburg Police Department. Essentially tried to mirror, and same thing got with Meredith Shelton from Fitchburg Fire, who's their business or office manager. She was able to find me some phenomenal resources from what other fire agencies in Dane County in the state do. Very, very similar to this. Big thing that we have, being a small department, we don't really have light duty. I don't even say really have, we don't have light duty. The stuff that we have that's light duty, Jeff and I do. So essentially what it does, and change this already, kind of some of the input I got from one of the crews was, I took out from what I had sent you already, the in combination with alternative duty assignments. We don't have that. Not that I couldn't find something for somebody to do, but I don't want to create work for somebody to do. You're kind of here working or you're not. That is very different when it comes to a work-related injury. Those people come to work and I find stuff for them to do because we are paying for their time off. This is different. This is Family Medical Leave Act. So from what I originally sent you, that first redlined item, same thing with the second paragraph there, that is the establishing a procedure to modify duty assignments. That's light duty, which we don't have. So it took that out of there. So really it just describes, right, what pregnancy is, tries to set up a policy to allow people, it only applies to non-probationary paramedics, which is essentially every policy we have. Does not contradict anything in existing FMLAs or current bargaining agreement. The bargaining agreement does talk about leave. Essentially says they're supposed to tell us. You have a copy in front of you. They don't have to tell us. They should tell us. Essentially, in a nutshell, when the employee and their physician determine that they can no longer safely meet our essential functional abilities list, which is published for them. That's a lot of that is lifting and moving. They need to go on leave. It says that myself or Jeff, if we believe it is a safety issue, we can ask them to go on leave. I don't know that we can really force them to go on leave. It says a decision should be made between you and your physician. It does say that we will make within reason, we will assist with uniform changes. They need new pants, need new shirts. They have a uniform allowance that will accommodate from that. Within reason means I'm not going to buy them a $2,000 set of turnout gear because they have a belly with a baby in it and they need gear. That's unreasonable or something that's temporary. When they return to work, we need something that gives them the return to work, something from their physician, and then it's kind of our options based on when they were hired, because we have people hired at different times with different hiring options. We can make them go back through a physical agility test. Any questions? Mm-hmm. And was copied pretty much verbatim with a lot of hacking out the light duty stuff from Fitchburg Police Department. There's nothing, no question.
No discussion.
Is there any way to request them to notify you if the doctor indicates that they aren't fit for duty, or versus them just decide I'm going to work?
They have to
language
right here. The return to work, when they must provide documentation of medical fitness for duty. I have to have a physician's note letter saying that they're released at unrestricted, but restricted.
But A, he says the employee must confer with their personal physician, providing him with abilities and delineates essential job and paramedic. A factor says she should, for X, Y, and Z reasons. Don't you think there should be some sort of language where she should warn you that, versus just job?
So you were kind of broken up, but what I think you're saying, we would treat it the same as any other injury or illness. That they have a list of functional abilities. They have to be able to lift 120 pounds by themselves. They have to be able to lift 110 pounds by themselves, 220 pounds with a partner. That is given to them to give to their physician, and then their physician has to give that letter back to us to say this person is released back to work without restrictions.
What if that physician tells them that they're not able to work and they don't pass that on to you?
It's got to be written.
That has to be provided to us in writing on physician letterhead. So it's something that they just can't come in and say, I'm ready to come back. If they don't have the form, they don't come back.
Yeah, that's why they must provide documentation of medical fitness. It's got to be a letter.
But my point is, they go to the physician, as you say in A, the physician informs the person that maybe they shouldn't be working for reasons X, Y, and Z, but you don't have any requirement for that person to come back or the doctor to report to you whether they're fit for that.
But they do. There has to be a letter from their physician saying, I'm okay with you going back to work. If their physician doesn't want to.
Greg, are you saying, I hear you say that you're coming back to work after the pregnancy or at some point during the pregnancy?
This is like when they become pregnant, they meet with the physician for the evaluation, and they provide the physician with the information, and the physician at that point decides it shouldn't be.
That's what I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying they could say, I can stay on, and the physician's like, no, you can't, but there's nothing in writing that says you need to come off the ambulance now because they don't want to use any of their sick time right away. Right? Is that what I hear you saying?
Well, something along that line.
I cannot make them not.
Where the physicians basically indicate they shouldn't, but there's no requirement for them to report back to you whether they're fit or not.
You are correct, and that's where this is. That's why it says this is they must confer with their personal. It is a personal choice. I really, based on the law, and maybe Sue, you can. I don't know if you have any more experience in the nursing world with this. I cannot make them not ride on the ambulance without some pretty significant support that I believe they shouldn't be on the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
It's protected. It's FMLA. They're protected. I can't make them take leave. As I think this is what I think you're asking, right? Their physician says you should really not be working.
Well, you basically in this policy say they must confer with their personal physician, providing him or her with the district's functional abilities that delineates the essential job functions of a paramedic. Is there any way to get the doctor to send some back saying they qualify or their ability to those qualifications so they can continue on?
I got a question for you.
What's that?
I've got a quick question for you. So this is just for them being able, once they're on FMLA or they're on maternity leave, to come back. It has nothing to do with while they're pregnant, correct?
Correct. Well, no, because it's providing the FMLA supersedes this. We didn't have a policy because it's FMLA. It was a request from somebody looking for some guidance saying,
okay,
maybe I want to have some children. How does that process here work? We didn't really. This is the policy or the policy then that says it's trying to provide some guidance for them to say at what point do you come off the ambulance, because eventually that's going to turn into unpaid leave unless they've been here long enough to have sick time. Mm-hmm. This is, and I think this is what JR is bringing up. Part B there says, right, you and your physician need to talk this over. I cannot make you go off the ambulance.
Okay.
And I don't believe I legally can make them go off the ambulance. And as it says there, without a compelling medical or public safety reason.
Okay, thank you.
It's discrimination. As long as they
But
can lift
hey,
100,
you have,
it is encouraging them to make good decisions. I know you're looking for a note for them to bring me a note that says, I think this person should come off the ambulance. I can't ask
no,
them.
I just, I think I'm looking for a note from the physician after they meet with them saying that they're okay to be on the ambulance.
I don't know that I can ask
Tell them
that.
to do that. First month, second month, third month, they probably meeting with the physician many times during the pregnancy, I would assume.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough situation.
I mean, I've worked with paramedics that have gone almost to their due dates.
Yep.
And been functional on the ambulance. So
Yep.
I think it's hard Patrick's spot on. I think it's hard for us to ask them or get into their personal medical records because, essentially they could say, well, you don't have access to that. I think the only thing that we can demand from them is you are able to come back and work. You're ready to do the job after your pregnancy. The other stuff, people have worked all the way up, and literally I've had people work all the way up until their due date.
Yeah, and I don't have any problem with that, but you've got the policy basically indicating they must meet with a physician to discuss the functional abilities and delineate the essential functions of the paramedic. I'm assuming the physician is going to give them the okay up until they're almost done, but what if the physician doesn't?
Yeah, it's almost like we're writing a paragraph and they're saying you have to do this, but there's no teeth behind why.
We're treating pregnancy different than any other. What if somebody has a heart condition?
Yeah. It's all protected. I cannot kick them off the ambulance. It's discrimination.
I think maybe we're ready to make a motion then.
Sure.
With it as modified, when you took out those two from the one we sent, right?
Correct. So as we saw here,
I make a motion to pass. I forgot the name of this maternity
maternity
duty leave. Yeah.
For a second?
Second.
5 seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Hearing none, the maternity duty / leave policy is approved.
and that'll go to the cruise for 21 days of input. If there's anything more significant, I'll bring it back to you next month. Last thing.
Let's see, here it is, which is, okay, interagency agreement.
Sure. So this is, budget one, the budget meeting always goes longer than an hour, so apologize. This was supposed to be the month we were supposed to have our picnic out at the town of Verona as well. So I'll have to do an IOU for you for next year for burgers and brats.
I was there, nobody showed up.
I was there
Sure.
a little bit earlier, but you just came in. I had to
So
leave.
this did get emailed out to you. It is pretty straightforward. Brent McHenry, who is the director of the Alliant Energy Center, had looked at it, said he didn't think there would be any problem with it. It did go through, I believe, as well, Corp Counsel for the county, who also didn't see any problems with it. So what you see here would be an intergovernmental agreement with Dane County, with the Alliant Energy Center as a kind of belonging to Dane County for us to provide ambulance services to events where requested. Similar, so a little bit, what changed from my discussion with you last month, the county's intent is to hire some LTE or LTE EMTs of their own and essentially staff that first aid station. The county has an operating license as a non-transporting EMS agency to staff the first aid station. What they'll be looking for Fitch-Rona for then, for any event that requires an ambulance to physically be there. So it'll be an ambulance and a crew, or because we have the ability to send a bike team. So a bike team of people, or the third option would be roaming paramedics. So during a concert, if they'll hire that one person to sit in the first aid stand, but they want 6 people wandering the Alliance Energy Center, the concert venue, the barns. They will look to us to provide those providers. So that's what this says. Essentially, scope of practice says we're going to provide competent EMTs licensed through Fitch-Rona. Big ones there are, I have asked them to give us a 21-day notice. I also have to get this approved through the state, which I don't, as a recurring special event operational plan. I don't foresee that being a problem. I actually already have a letter from Chief Bloom saying he, as long as this belongs to the town of Madison, so as of this moment in time, this is actually good. Chief Bloom said, we're okay with Fitch-Rona doing this. Give us 10 days notice or 21 days notice for us to fill a schedule. I generic it down. That's not a word, I know. But so I changed it to make it a little bit more generic to give us some options. The original one said paramedics, kind of as I brought to you last month. I think there's opportunities here for us based on needs to essentially partner with our fire departments and work in combination with possibly some EMTs or AEMTs and paramedics to essentially, for standby purposes only, to create essentially a single medic, either a single medic ambulance or a single medic or a medic and EMT roaming team of medics. So I made the language in here reflect EMT so that it encompasses all levels of EMS providers. This is something I'm gonna have to work with the union on and see exactly what the impact to that is. It'll have to be a kind of a behind the scenes thing, and that'll be some discussions I will make sure I keep you informed on. But that's kind of one of the things I promote out, or I want to share with you here. We'll provide people, we'll provide the equipment and ambulances. Any charges that are incurred through this will be charged to the patient unless arrangements are made otherwise. This is templated language we have for every one of our other special events. We'll bill them for it monthly. This will go through the end of 2021. So essentially once this is signed, we are on the hook until the end of next year as it talks about the option to renew. If it doesn't work out for us, we can pull out. Or we can modify it within 60 days notice. And there's a bunch of the liability stuff.
I think your cats are outside, Dan.
So this was one of the discussions up there that I think we need to do. So I proposed to them $65 an hour. To me, it's not on the agenda, so we'll put it on the agenda for next month. When we talk about all of our rates, I think we should raise our regular standby rates to $130 an hour for an ambulance. It's a $30 an hour jump, but we are also seeing some increased costs that I think we should be able to recoup with this.
It's squeaky. What? What?
So back to, I think it was JR's question, right? What happens when the mayor tells Chief Davis, I want you to go staff the Alliant Energy Center? I don't know, because this isn't a contract. This is an intergovernmental agreement. I think when it's signed now, we have an intergovernmental agreement through 2021. Now, I think if this mayor pushed it through the Department of Health, they could say that the EMS and fire services for the Alliant Energy Center has since changed, since Fitch-Rona put in an application for their operational plan that will say the town of Madison is the primary provider of services to here. Though they're okay with it, I am not. They could potentially get the state to deny this contract. Really, so be it. They can have it if they want it. I don't know that I would fight it. Does that kind of address the scenario you're looking at?
Hey, quick question. How many activities do you think we'll have to staff for in a normal year?
Dude, I looked at that.
About a dozen?
Off the top of my head, it was about a dozen. It was hockey, like the WIA hockey tournament for 3 days. It was monster truck. There was, I think,
Dairy
4.
Center.
World Dairy Expo, Dane County Fair.
There was like a couple of country music concerts, a couple of rock concerts. Yeah, it's like a dozen and a half, 18. Not all of those were ambulances. Sometimes they were roaming. Sometimes they were ambulances. So it's not a huge, like I said, even roughly looking at like $15 an hour of profit, it was like $5,000 over what it would cost, like straight cost us to staff it in overtime costs, which easily extrapolates to the amount of time that it would take Jeff and I to do scheduling and training and driving things from one place to another. So there's not a huge profit margin here, but I think it's a good idea. I still think it's a good idea.
Patrick, I have a question for you. We'll use the Dane County Fair, and Grandma's up here watching her kids show her prize pig. And she falls down and gets hurt, and you give her some drugs to cut the pain and blah, 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 but she is on Medicaid or Medicare. Are we going to end up eating the bill for that? Whatever drugs we end up using, I don't know what, pick an expensive drug. I don't know what an expensive drug is. I'm a farmer. But if you throw in an expensive drug that we don't get reimbursed for, is this gonna come back to haunt us?
We would treat it like every other ambulance transport. Doesn't matter. She's at the fair. She fell at her house. She gets charged the same.
Yeah.
And we end up getting the Medicare, Medicaid price like we would anyone else.
Yeah. So it would actually, I don't want to call it make money off of it. We would absolutely cover the cost. What we're charging the Alliant Energy Center for merely covers the cost for people to sit there. The tax,
Okay.
because it's dedicated to the event, we cannot use tax dollars for someone that, if I call 911, I can't have that ambulance, right? That's what our tax dollars are paying for. So anytime we do a special event on a vehicle dedicated to an event, 100% of the cost of that vehicle is covered by who's ever asking for the special event, with the exception of, I don't even call it an exception, when we go to like the high school events, the school doesn't pay for that, but that ambulance, though it's at the high school, if a 911 call comes in, it leaves. So that ambulance actually does stay available. We up staff is what we do.
Okay.
Any other issues with the intergovernmental agreement?
What's the next step? Just to approve it.
Who approves it?
Well, say we go ahead and we approve it. Is it going to?
I sent it to Dane County for Joe Parisi to sign.
Okay, so they've seen it already.
Yes, through Brent. The only thing I changed it from the last time it went through the county's corp council was I asked for a 21-day notification period. Is the only thing I changed since they saw it last. So yes, they've seen this already, correct.
And then the fee schedule we'll have to address at the next meeting.
Well, this is my intent to charge them that fee schedule, and they have seen that fee schedule. I think to be fair, we need to change our fee schedule and charge everybody that fee schedule. That's not currently what we're charging.
So any more discussion on this? Otherwise, entertain a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mike, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, the intergovernment agreement with Dane County is approved by the EMS Commission. And any other business? Hearing none. Next meeting, July 16th, place to be determined, I guess, depending on what happens, right?
We'll kind of see where life is, and Mike, as opposed to Zoom meetings. I can do them from home. I'm liking Zoom meetings.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I just have to close the door to keep the dog and cat out.
That's exactly what it is. He was sitting out there meowing, and I'm like,
I will be out west on July 16th. Just an FYI.
I think it'd be great to have it at the town hall, because then we could have it outside with social distancing,
Okay.
plenty of air, and burgers.
okay,
You making dinner? You're making dinner, Mike?
Yeah,
thanks.
All right, we're in.
Okay. A motion to adjourn,
Make a motion to adjourn.
in a second.
Second.
5 seconds.
All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Bye.
Bye.
Nobody's opposed, so meeting is adjourned at 8:41.